Good morning, everybody, and you're very welcome to today's webinar. It's a new type of webinar for us because it's made up exclusively of Lift clients. And so we're going to open up the microphone to everybody, which is not something we normally do. So you're very welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Janet Harkin, and I'm joined by my colleague James, and we'll just show you some photos of who we are very quickly. But just while I have you all here, if I could just do an audio check, please. I've tried to unmute you all. So could you all, can you either say your name or I can hear people speaking in the background. That's fantastic news. So the microphones work. So we'll come back to you all in a moment to go around the table. So yeah, just an audio check, that's all fine. Open mic is what we're doing today. And it's your webinar, so please do ask questions of yourselves and each other around the table. We're just going to record today's webinar just for those who can't make it today, and we do aim to have you on your way by 11:30. I'm going to unmute people as and when, but I know that there's always a bit of background noise depending where you are listening in from, so apologies. You can raise your hand if you do need to be unmuted if you think you're already muted. Today's speakers. My name is Janet Harkin. I'm head of marketing at Policy and Practice. You may have heard my voice on various different webinars before. I never show my face because I never normally speak. So that's me. That's who I am. And I'm also joined by James Rawlins, our client services manager for Policy and Practice. James, do you want to say hello? I seem to have muted James. Let me try and unmute. James, I think you may have muted yourself.
Hello,
there we go.
Can you hear me now? Good
yes,
morning,
can hear
everybody.
you perfectly, James. Hi.
Not the first time I've been muted.
Might not be the last. Depends how we get on today. And also today's speakers are, as I say, yourselves around the table. So it's great to have you all here today. We've got quite a lot to get through today, and we're very mindful of time. So we want shortly to do some introductions around the virtual table, just for you to, and we'll sort of have a little bit about what we want you to share. Just a point really about trying to create this team, because everything's easier when we collaborate, and James may talk a little bit more about this kind of collaboration piece that we are very much wanting to promote with Lift clients. We're going to actually be talking about 10 steps to producing a successful campaign, talking about pension credit, a look about evaluation and return on investment. What does success look like? And then also some next steps as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go around the table, if I may, and unmute everybody for you to all to say hello. Okay, starting with Jane Worrell. Do you want to say hello, Jane, and talk to us a little bit about these 4 questions that you may see on your screen? Hi, Jane.
Hello. Hiya. My name is Jane Worrell. I'm the Revenues and Benefits Operational Manager at Folkestone and Hythe. With regards to our plans for this campaign, we've already got the list identified, and that's going off to our dedicated resource next week. We've formulated the way in which we think we're going to conduct the campaign. So we're just finalising that with all the letters, etc., that we need to put in place. So I really just want to hear what other ideas people have got that may be different from ours. And obviously I'm happy to share what we're going to do if people are interested and want to do the same as us.
Brilliant, Jane. Thank you very much. Lovely to have you on the webinar today. My next person I'm going to unmute is John. John Laidler. Are you there, John?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
We can indeed, John. Lovely to hear you. Hopefully you can see there on the screen. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm a welfare rights worker working on the campaign team in Durham County Council, and I've got two of my colleagues with me as well, Rachel O'Donnell and Marie Martin, and I'm not quite sure if they can speak to you in person, but I'll just introduce them as well. We're just at the beginnings of this take-up campaign. We've just been using policy and practice, the LIFT dashboard, to get an idea of what sort of people we're going to target, and then we're just going to work from there. So really nothing more than that at the minute, but we're going to be working on it quite quickly.
Brilliant. Okay, excellent. Thank you, John. You're very welcome. Lovely to have you join us today.
Thank you.
And Marie is your colleague as well. Is Marie in the same room as you?
She is. I can see her. She's using my old headphones.
Oh, right. Okay. Do you know
So
what?
I don't think she can. Yeah, speak on them. So.
Okay. I think what I might do is just mute one of you, if you don't mind, just for audio, because there can be a bit of an echo, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on then to Sanjay. Sanjay, are you there? Would you like to say hello to the group?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Hi, Sanjay Mandil, London Borough of Redbridge. I'm the income manager for Redbridge. We are very early stage. We have identified those under the pension credits who we might be able to help. And in the throes of putting a resource team together to get this going, we are very keen to get this moving, and we do need to start getting some return on investment. They're starting to make noises up above at the minute, so we need to get this going. So very keen to hear how other people are doing, and obviously when we do start, we will share what we're doing.
Brilliant. I think you're in the right place actually for information today. Okay, so I think the final person that I can introduce, hopefully, is Clifford Sweeney. Clifford, you've self-muted, so if you're able to take yourself off mute, it would be lovely to hear from you.
I've got a whole lot that happens throughout.
Hello, Clifford, are you there?
Following you, like it failed to say,
Hi, Clifford. Can you? No, I think Clifford's having audio problems. So, Clifford, unless you can hear me, should you say hello?
No, so this one here.
Okay. I think what we'll do is we'll carry on. I know I have a few people that have joined us by phone, so I've sent you all some audio pin numbers so that you can join in via phone. It's just a bit of a complication to unmute you via the phone, but hopefully you'll get your pins through and that will enable you to join in. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to carry on. It's brilliant to have everybody around the table. James, is there anything that you want to say to introduce everybody on the webinar before we move on?
No, really, other than thank you for coming today, and hopefully by the end of the session we'll have a much better idea of how we move this campaign forward. Sounds like some of you are much more advanced in more advanced stages than others, but today's objective is really to get us on that road and kickstart this campaign off.
Brilliant, lovely. Okay, and on that note, thanks, James. And on that note, this probably sounds a bit corny, but the team is us. So basically, everybody who has a LIFT dashboard, we want to work really closely with you, and we also want you to feel that you can work really closely with us, as indeed I think hopefully you have done to date. So from policy and practices point of view, in terms of helping get this, helping you to get your campaigns underway, it's James that is your main contact from certainly the LIFT dashboard point of view, and also the data as well. So anything to do with LIFT at all. But just to sort of say that from me, from a marketing point of view, I do appreciate its campaigns and communications and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so any help that I can give on that score, I'm very happy. But James would be your main point of contact. And I think the team really is about you. And we're very aware. I think, James, you know, that we've got experienced users of the LIFT dashboard and also brand new LIFT users as well. And I think that's quite exciting for us because there's lots of new ideas coming in, as Jane said at the beginning, and also lots of experience as well, things that people have got ideas of things that have worked. We know from the steering groups that we've held that collaboration and working together has been very much a theme, something that people have wanted to develop, working together. And so this is our first foray, first way of doing that via this webinar. Yeah, so we've got ambitions, but we really want to know what you think. But ambitions for an online community, ways to kind of collaborate and work collaboratively together. So yeah, we're putting our toe in the water to see where we go. Brilliant. So if I may, I think we actually covered this already as we went round the table of people who may have run a lift campaign already and people who haven't run a lift campaign. So I think really, thank you everybody for your introductions. I think we'll scoot on to the next slide, which is very much about the kind of the content of the webinar today. So it's 10. This slide talks about 10 steps to a successful campaign. And James and I were talking about this before we came on the webinar, that we're really aware that some of you will have done campaigns before, be it a lift campaign or other outreach campaigns. And others, maybe this is your first time. So very aware of that there's kind of differences. But we wanted to give you some ideas about what we think, just to get you started, if you like. And this is not meant to be prescriptive in any way, but it's meant to just be stuff to help you get going with. As in all good webinar ways, there's a download to be had in the panel on the right hand side, and that is this campaign checklist, this 10 steps to a successful campaign. This is the checklist that you can download, and it's got much more information in the download as well. But this is going to be pretty much our structure of today, what we're going to go through. So yeah, so 10 points, it's a lot to get through, but we're going to canter through some stuff and then spend more time on other areas, I think, as well. But that's just to give you an idea. You know, why are we doing the campaign? How are we going to do it? What's the strategy? You know, who are we targeting? What activity are we going to be doing? From a messaging point of view, what one thing do you want your audience to know? What one thing do you want them to do? I think our temptation is certainly to try and get people to do lots of different things, and actually what that results in is people doing nothing because it's just a little bit too overwhelming, too complicated. So simplicity of message is a lot harder than you might think. And the channels then, so number 7, how are we going to reach the audience? You know, what's the best way to do that? What's worked for some people and hasn't necessarily worked for others? We're very much looking to see, get some good ideas on that one. Time frames, we're very aware of time frames. We have a very structured time frame for this campaign, which I think is going to be quite useful. But we've also got Easter and 2 bank holidays between then, which kind of flies in the ointment. What resources do you have in terms of time, money and people? And also importantly, I think as well for the future, how we're going to be evaluating success. So there's quite a lot to get through. And like I said, we'll be going through some in more depth than others. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you now, James, and you can start talking about point 1.
Okay, thank you very much, Janet. So yeah, absolutely. There's 10 points to get through here, which is really a structure of a campaign. But there are some fundamental decision points in there as well. Just, you know, thinking about how you're going to talk to people. Are you going to write? Are you going to email, etc.? So we'll cover those points as we go through. But as a starter for 10 here, we can see that pension credit is pretty underclaimed. There's an awful lot of people out there that are entitled to a pension credit that don't claim it. Now, one of the really interesting points on this slide is that there's a difference in claim rates between the under 75s and the over 75s, and that is of course relevant to what we're trying to achieve here, because we're targeting specifically the over 75s, because that's in line with the TV license. Now, the TV license itself should be a great motivator. You would think it is universal. Everybody has a TV. There aren't many that don't. So this should be a good motivator for people, and we should find that we have good results as a result of that. However, you can see that over 75s are less likely to have a pension credit. So in one way, that makes them a tougher audience to crack. But with that extra motivation of the TV license, hopefully then we can get good inroads into that group. Okay, can we have the next slide, please, Janet? Okay, so we're probably all aware, and we'll just go over what we know. So the TV license was free for over 75s. It's no longer going to be free. It's going to be sort of means tested. So anybody who has access or has entitlement to pension credit will be able to continue to receive a free TV license over 75. The current arrangement ends on the 31st of May. So from the 1st of June 2020, everybody will need either to pay or to prove that they have a pension credit. Now, we don't know exactly what the mechanism is for the BBC to check that you're on a pension credit, but the information that we have from various websites is that a person need do nothing. So there must be some mechanism whereby the BBC are checking against pension service information to see who's got it and who hasn't. But what that tells us, I guess, is that ideally, we need to get people moved onto pension credit to qualify for this in good time. Whether they'll still be checking up to the 31st of May, I'm sure they will, but they'll have to communicate with people. So they will be writing to people, I'm sure, well in advance of that date. So the sooner we can get people claiming pension credit, the better. Now, one of the things that I don't know the answer to, and probably you know better than I do, I did try and have a look round central government to see what the time frame is for assessing a claim for pension credit and how quickly they turn those claims around, and I wasn't able to find anything. I think the legislation said as soon as practically possible or something like that, and I don't know how quickly the pension service are actually doing it, but if we assumed it's going to take them a good couple of weeks to turn around a pension credit claim, then that sort of tells us that actually we need people to be on probably by the beginning of May, or at least making a claim by the middle of May in order to make sure that they've got it for the end of May. That feels like the right sort of time frame to me, but you probably yourselves have better experience of how long it takes to get those claims in. The interesting thing here is in terms of what that fiscal benefit will be, what that financial gain for the individual, it's twofold, because not only do they get the extra money from the pension credit, but they will also be saving themselves £157.50. That's the new rate from April for a TV license. So there is a good, as I say, good motivation here for people to apply for pension credit, because it really is going to make a difference to people. Okay, next slide, please, Janet. Okay, so what we've got here is some sort of estimations of return on investment, economic gain that we have seen from other take-up campaigns in the past. Of course, this is essentially a pension credit take-up, the same as pension credit take-ups that have been done in the past. The added value in it is the value of the TV license as well, but this gives you a bit of a flavour of some of the campaigns that have been run previously and the numbers involved, and we can see here that quite significant values in terms of money, but also the number of people that are get a pension credit at the end of one of these campaigns. Now, it is different there between the two organisations. You can see we've got some numbers there for Haringey, we've got some numbers there for Folkestone, and you can see the numbers are quite different, and we see that quite regularly actually across the country. Just the average value of a pension credit in one area to another does seem to be quite a spread, so you will see differences in the money that people will receive. And the big number that you can see that is missing from the Haringey one, which I didn't have, and you might be able to tell me, was the number of people who actually successfully claim pension credit at the end of that campaign. But just that's really to give us a flavour of what the size of the prize is, what we're aiming for. Obviously, it's money in people's pockets, but there will also be a trickle-down effect to the local authority as well. We're aiming to improve the financial resilience of individuals. Increasing their income will make it will make it more likely that they pay their rent on time, more likely they pay their council tax on time. And that sort of thing. So there will always be a trickle-down effect to the local authority as well. Some direct, some more indirect benefits to the council. And we'll talk a bit more about the evaluation process towards the end. So objectives. what we did here is, I said at the start, Janet said we've got this 10 points that we're going to work through. And this is sort of the building blocks, if you like, of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So the aim of the campaign is, as I've said, to improve financial resilience of low-income households and secure access to a free TV license. And so what we try to do, the success criteria in that would be to increase the number of households that receive income from a pension credit and maintain access to a free TV license. So that, that's the objective. Those are the two success criteria. And as I say, these are the sort of building blocks that you've got to sort of understand when you do any campaign. Okay, next slide. So normally with any sort of campaign, it would align to an overarching strategy that the local authority would have, and that might be improving the lives of the vulnerable, or improving financial resilience for people, or taking people out of poverty, or whatever. And so in this instance, what we're going to be doing is going to the LIFT dashboard, using the LIFT dashboard to identify people that we feel are the target cohort, specific people. These people over 75, people who are eligible for a pension credit that aren't currently receiving it, and we're going to use that insight from the LIFT dashboard in order to target those people for a specific take-up campaign. So what we've done, and this is where, okay, there are two things I want to say here. The first is that for every LIFT dashboard user, I've created a view. You can see there's at the top of the screen there, red box, it says view PCTV license take up. So everybody has a specific view within their dashboard. If you go into the take up campaign overview dashboard, and then click that view, it will pop up like this in the street view, and it will automatically tick the TV license box, and it will tick the pension credit box, and you will get your number and those specific cases. Now, the thing about this is using your data at the point in time that you extracted it and sent it to us, and it is saying these people are over 75 now. But what it doesn't do is take account of the fact that there will be people who will become 75 between now and the 31st of May. So as it stands at the moment, we are identifying everybody who we want, everybody we need, based on their age as of today. What I've asked the developers to do is to go back into the system, into the code, and change that so that we can also identify everybody who is going to be 75 between now and the 31st of May. So there will be a few people at the moment that we're missing. Now, whether that's a big issue or a small issue, have a different view on that. It won't be many people. How many birthdays have we got between now and the end of May? So you could extract your list today, and it will be absolutely fine. You will be missing a couple of people whose birthday falls between now and 31st of May. By Friday, I'm told by Terran, he will have amended the code, and we will probably have on the benefits take up overview screen a separate figure for specifically this campaign that will include everybody who's going to be 75 as well in that time frame. So by Friday, that should be there for everybody, but whether we use that or not, you can do it today. You can use this view and get a list of people to work with and get cracking if you want to, or we can wait till Friday and pick up those extra people.
James, you just want to pause a second here and just ask anybody, if anybody's got any questions about this part of their LIFT dashboard. I'm very happy to, very happy to unmute everybody, and please just do let me know, just do say if you've got any questions or anything to ask about your LIFT dashboard, this particular bit. Everybody's delightful and happy.
I was just going to ask something. It's John Laidler from Welfare Rights and Durham Council. Can you hear me, James?
Yep, go ahead, John.
Yeah, Jen. So this data that we've got, well, I had a brief look at it yesterday. it's limiting the cohort down to people who might be entitled to guaranteed pension credit. Is that right?
Yes.
Not savings credit. Yeah.
Guaranteed
So
credit.
does savings credit give entitlements to the free TV license as well? That was my question.
I don't know the answer to that. It is simply all the information I've read so far just says pension credit. So therefore, I would suggest either.
I think that's right. Yeah, I've just not looked into that. But in the past, when they've used the term pension credit, they mean both.
Yes.
Just in case you knew something different. But it means that the other local authorities' dashboards the same. It's all limited to guaranteed pension credit.
Yours has been updated recently with a few changes based on the work that Fabiana did to it. So I'd have to go and check to see if everybody's has the same logic behind it. But the intention is that it only identifies guaranteed credit.
Yeah. Okay, so the point is there might be a wide number of people, but we've got some to work with on the guaranteed credit. That's fine. So thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, unless anybody else has got any questions, particularly about the dashboard. Great, we can always come back. We don't need to pick everybody off right now.
So what the policy is for so it's not changed. I said you get their repayment, you create their repayment, you send an application out, you pend it for a month, you set a memo. After the month, you look at to see if there's an appeal or like any like query regarding the payment. If there's no query, you unpend it and you deal with it as you would.
I think we should move on.
I think Clifford. I think that's Clifford there, but Clifford, I'm afraid we can't hear you properly, so I'm going to have to give you a mute, unfortunately. We can come back. We can try and figure out the audio and come back, but I think for now we'll move on, James.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we come to points where we have decisions to make in terms of the choices that we've got. So this comes down to your resources, and this is going to be different at each local authority, and we're going to absolutely be led by you as to what you've got available to you and how you want to work. So there are kind of, in my view, sort of two sorts of campaigns that you can do, a supported one and an unsupported one. So a supported campaign would be where you offer assistance to follow that claim for pension credit through, and the unsupported one is where it's almost like direct marketing, where you just simply send out a leaflet and hope they pursue their own claim. So this is now where you have a choice as to how you're going to do this and how much support you can give to people. Now, it seems logical to suggest that the more support you can give people, the more likely they are to see that claim through. And one of the things that we need to be conscious of here, which I'm sure you all are, is that we're looking at the over 75 group, and that perhaps that group is one that does need more support in everything that they do. And so it's likely that those people are not going to be the ones that are most able to just go ahead and pursue their own pension credit claim. So whether you're going to offer this support yourself or whether you have access to other advice agencies that you work with regularly to be able to pass this job over to, that's something that you'll have to sort of work out yourselves, I guess. And you're going to be well familiar internally with what you have to do those things. But it would be worth, I think, at this point, just throwing it open to those that have already got some plans quite advanced, which it sounds like Jane at Folkestone you've got somebody who's going to be talking to customers. Is it possible just talk to us a little bit about what level of support you're going to offer those people? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting your three-stage action plan, because we're actually starting with calling rather than letters. So as those of you may know, we've got a dedicated resource. It's just one person who works on our lists from the dashboard. The list will be going to her on Monday. It's 756 cases, and she will start, initially she will look to see what level of support the claimant needs, and we will identify whether they've got council tax arrears, rent arrears, and then she will be making a phone call to them to see if they wish to claim the pension credit, explaining what it is all about, depending on what they say. So if they are fairly IT literate and we feel that they can manage to do the claim online, we will send them the link if they do have an email address. If they're a little bit unsure about what the campaign is all about and what pension credit is all about, we are in the process of developing a flyer type letter, which we will send out explaining what pension credit is, explaining why we're contacting them at this particular time. I'm just waiting. There's a video of Martin Lewis, who I know is not the best person in some of these instances, but he does seem to be trusted by a lot of people. So we are contemplating providing a link to his explanation, which people tell me is very good, and he does explain it very well. And the elderly do tend to sort of trust him more than they do a council. So we feel that might be a link that would be worth including. We do have, or I will have from April, 2 welfare officers. So we will also be offering those customers either a phone call from the welfare officer to assist them in completing their application, or if they're able to come into the civic centre, we will offer them an appointment to come and do that here with us. Or we will also be asking them if they've got a third party, son, daughter, granddaughter, somebody who will be able to support them in doing the application. We always leave a phone number with them, so if they have problems, they can come back to us and say that they've tried to do it, they've been unsuccessful, and can we give them some more help. We are in a very fortunate position that we've got those people available to do it. Like I say, we're starting next week. If we don't make first contact through the phone call, we will email if we have an email address. We will send a letter if we don't have an email address. And then we're going to leave it throughout the whole of March, probably until after Easter. And then we will go back to those cases and see how they're getting on. But we will also do some targeting of those cases, starting with those that have got council tax arrears and rent arrears, because obviously they're the ones that need the money quicker than somebody who's already managing financially okay, and possibly it's going to be additional money, so we'll help their lifestyle, but it's not required for them to pay their basic essentials day to day.
Thank you, Jane. That makes absolute sense. And there's some things in there that I just want to pick up on. So first of all, it was your first choice is telephone. So that's perhaps the most fundamental question for everybody to answer is, how are you going to do this? Is it going to be a telephone call? Is it a letter? Is it, what does it look like? So what Folkestone are saying there is that the first choice is a telephone. And then they move to email and then to letter. So it's a multi-channel engagement, and I think to me that makes great sense. And if you've got the resources available to do that, then that's fantastic. The other thing to think about there is that, Jane, you have a relatively small number in your cohort, your target cohort, so that is manageable. Now, for some of the other local authorities here, that number is much bigger, and that might change that that strategy, that activity that you're going to do. So I guess another fundamental for a lot of people is going to be, how many am I going to do? Am I going to do the whole cohort, or actually can I only do a proportion of it? And in which case you need to do exactly what Jane has done there and drill into it a bit further and say, well, let's do the ones with arrears, let's do the ones that are most at risk, poorest financial resilience, etc., and then start to prioritize that list up. That absolutely makes sense. The other thing to think about there is having a control group. If you're going to do your whole cohort, that's fantastic. If you can't do your whole cohort, you choose which ones you can do, and then the others could potentially be a control group, so that we can track afterwards how many of those people got a pension credit and how many of the people who you engage with got a pension credit, and then we'll see what that uplift is, see what the success of the campaign is against the control. Now, you would expect people in the over 75 group in this lead up time to TV licenses disappearing, or the fee, having to pay the fee, you would expect that take up to go up as a result of that if people are getting the right advice externally outside of what we're doing. So it would be a really useful mechanism comparison to see to see what that uplift is. Janet, I think we've got a couple of questions there.
Yeah, indeed. So Jane, just on the calls, so you mentioned there about 756 calls. How long? How long's a piece of string? How long would you expect one phone call to take on average?
It's probably about 10 minutes, I think we allow per phone call. You do get a sense when you're talking to customers quite quickly whether or not you're going to be able to get your message over to them and they understand it, or whether it's going to be a bit more of a lengthy process. If we discover that somebody is particularly vulnerable and doesn't really understand what we're saying, we will ask if there is somebody else that can support them, or we will ask if we can call them back at another time when somebody is going to be with them, so that there's a better understanding. What we found when we particularly did some of our DHP campaigns and people really didn't understand it, that was when we introduced the flyer to get the message out of what it was all about. So I think 10 minutes is probably all we need to identify, one, whether they're capable of doing it, and secondly, whether they need more support, and whether that is just simply through us sending an email so they can read it at their leisure, or whether they need third-party support, which could either be from somebody they know or from us providing that support, and that would be a case we would refer to the welfare officer. Not sure yet how many cases are going to go to the welfare officer, but I'm not anticipating huge numbers, probably about 5%, so about 30, 40 cases.
Okay, brilliant. That's really useful. The second question I had, and I'm going to convey this on behalf of Clifford, whose audio we can't get working properly, but Clifford asks, will you be sending the flyer to eligible people, or will it be also at the general offices? Hopefully I've got that question right, Clifford. Are you just going to send it to people you identify, or are you going to make it more widely available in your general offices as well?
Yeah, our plan is, because we've got about 1,100 cases that are potentially eligible for pension credit that aren't over 75 yet. So we're going to do a simple mail shot or an email shot to the other cases, not the 756. We are going to use Twitter and Facebook and our website as well, which, although when I mentioned it, they said, well, people over 75 don't use it. And I said, no, but their families do. So we're hoping that that will reach a number of people. We haven't at the moment decided if we're going to put any posters up within our own civic centre, mainly because the people that visit tend not to be over 75. But again, we could target that towards families. So once we get going and we see what response we get, we'll gauge whether or not we need to put a little bit more advertising out there, but certainly it'll be on the website, on our Twitter account and on our Facebook account.
And Jane, do you have a budget for this activity? Because printing of posters and that kind of stuff, that will cost money. Have you allocated a budget for that?
No, that's all part of what we would normally do. In the other campaigns that we've done, it's mainly the flyers tend to go out by email. We don't tend to send very many, so we don't have to print very many. So we found that works pretty well for us, because an email costs us just the officer's time in attaching it to the email or providing the link. Yeah.
And what about putting posters in GP surgeries, or those kind of other sort of partner organisations, if you like? Is that something you'll be considering?
It is something we've considered from lots of angles, not just on this, but just generally on people that are having problem paying their council tax and not claiming benefits. We have got a draft poster with our communications team, which focuses mainly on debt. So we haven't particularly done one for the pension credit campaign. And we haven't really got as far as doing that because we have identified places where we'd like to put it, but because we need to work with our communication team, and there's a little thing called annual billing that kind of gets in the way for us to do anything at this time of year. It just takes up so much time. That's something we will revisit probably in April.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to open the mic to yourself, Sanjay, because hopefully your audio is working okay. I know you had a question I think you wanted to ask. I'm thinking specifically of Jane. Is that right, Sanjay?
Yes, hi there, Sanjay from Redbridge. I just wondered out there if anyone's aware whether the Citizens Advice Bureau would support people to make a pension credit claim if we get inundated and unable to resource this.
Okay.
My experience of the Citizens Advice Bureau in our particular area, that there's a minimum of about 6 weeks wait to get an appointment. So because we've got our own welfare officers, and I've recently engaged a new one who starts on the 1st of April, so I'm doubling my resource there immediately. So that's why I'm going to be able to use them, because they won't have a workload as such when they start in April. So they will be able to pick up on the campaign cases that we want to refer as we go through March. But I would refer people to the CAB, but as I say, in our area, there's a particularly long waiting time for people to see them. And it will probably be quicker for us to do it for them if we're able to, than to send it to there.
Okay, it's just that
I
we
think
fund. Sorry.
Sorry, Sanjay, carry on ahead. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say we fund weekly surgeries for the CAB at our offices, and we could utilise that. We pay for them to come in for a day to specifically see our client, our tenants. So we might be able to utilise that, I'm thinking.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that, so that's something we can't use.
I know a couple of the other councils I've spoken to have talked about using Age UK. I might have got that charity wrong, but there are a couple of other sort of age-related charities that they are. I think it was Hackney and Camden are already engaged with, and I think the intention there was to try and move support off to those.
John, did you?
The DWP have a visiting service. Yeah, so I'm here. Sorry, I was just going to say that up in Durham area in the northeast, the DWP have a visiting service, and we refer to those quite often. But also, you know, I think I want to be a bit sharper in knowing what exactly is involved in making the claim, because I think I tend to just sort of like get the relatives to do it or get the clients to ring up if they can. I very rarely get involved in filling in like a paper application or whatever. But it seems to be that some people can just ring up the pension service and they go through the figures just over the phone and don't even ask for verification of bank statements or anything. They just seem to take their word for it and award it. You know, so it seems in a lot of respects to be quite an easy process to make the claim. But if it's any way complicated, we'll make a referral to the DWP visiting service.
Okay, that's useful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
excellent. Great.
I think that was really useful just to hear a bit more detail about that sort of claim process and the activity that you're gonna do, and hopefully you've all had some takeaways from that, which was great. So what we'll do is we'll just move on. I'm conscious of time, and we do want to be away by 11:30. So now it's really about those draft templates, whether it's letters or telephone scripts or other collateral that we're going to create. So if you haven't developed these yourselves internally already, this is something that you will need to do, and somebody might have already done this. And I know, Janet, we've got some examples of this that we've worked up already from other campaigns in the past.
Yeah.
Go on.
Definitely, yeah. Sorry, yeah. So I was just going to say, so we have got a couple, and as you rightly say, James, these are from previous campaigns. So last year's Mixed Age Pensioners campaign, and we were very kindly shared, Islington very kindly shared this letter with us, and that worked for them. And they did a two-step type of letter, and unlike Folkestone, they started with the letter and then they did a follow-up letter and then they did the phone call. So if you like, the other way about. And it's very interesting to see different strategies and different ways of work. And I think that's the beauty of having these conversations, is to know what worked for somebody else may just work for you if you sort of tweak it a little bit or what have you. Anyway, suffice to say, this is a letter text that can be adapted, I think, for the pension credit campaign that we're talking about here now, and also yeah, for moving this forward for this time. So this is from Islington. And the structure that I like about this, it has a heading, it has indented stuff. So in terms of a layout, visually, it works well. So there's a lot of nice stuff to follow on there. This also then, I know we have Margaret on the call from Haringey. Margaret, this is the template of a call script we did for Haringey, and basically the idea of this was just to have something to give to people to help script a conversation for somebody, unlike Jane's team, who might just be picking up the phone for the first time, if you like. So very much at the beginning, introducing themselves and gaining trust right at the very beginning, and setting credibility, and yeah, getting that relationship set. And also, I think the interesting thing about this point was that there was something in here, using the opportunity, and you may or may not wish to do this, but it's just an idea I thought was interesting, using this opportunity to talk about offering other supports, possibly, that might have been useful, in this case for this particular person, Joseph, sorry. Yeah, so I think that, like I say, not everybody will need call scripts, but it's just useful to have something that you can work with and adapt to yourself. So this does exist as well. And I think then the other thing that is useful, just to, and we can come on to talk about supports and help in a moment, but this is something I think, objection handling for calls, is kind of a technical term really, but basically if you get on the phones and you get a roadblock, or something doesn't go the way that your script says it should do, how do you handle that, and being prepared for that kind of thing. And Jane, I know, if I could bring you in again, Jane, I know that with yourselves in Folkestone, you didn't really, the phone calls were very positive, weren't they, for your pension credit campaign? You didn't really have to have a lot of objection handling. Is that correct?
That is correct. We had a few people, and those people, we confirmed their email address with them, and we sent something out to them because they couldn't believe that a council was phoning them and offering them money. So that worked pretty well for us, but we haven't had much resistance. Obviously, the officer that's doing it has now been doing it for over 6 months, so has developed a really good communication skill in talking to people. And she also, although we ask them to confirm who they are through data protection, we also give out certain information so that they know who we are. So it's information that we would know about them, that they, once they've confirmed who they are, we can then respond in saying, well, we know that you are in receipt of a certain benefit. We know that you are receiving council tax reduction. Just high level stuff, nothing too detailed, just so it gives them a little bit of confidence that we know as much about them as we do, because we hold an awful lot of personal information about these people. We're not going to give that to somebody if they can't come back and say they are who we believe we are speaking to. But I think it gives them some sort of trust that we do know things about them that other people phoning wouldn't know. If we do hit a brick wall and they really don't believe us and they really don't want to engage with us, then we would just say, thank you, we will email you, or we will send you out a letter. We wouldn't push it, but we have found on the whole that most people are very responsive and very receptive. And it is really down to the nature of the officer who makes the phone calls. I do know when she first started, she tweaked the way she spoke to people. To begin with, she was finding blocks and things like that. But once she got into the stride of it, she's found it a lot easier since then. The biggest one was our phone system automatically withholds the number. So we never phone using that now. We always make sure that our number is showing, because we found that customers don't pick up when it says no caller ID. But if they've got a local number, because that's what it shows, they're more inclined to pick up the phone. And some of them even know it's us when we call anyway, because they recognise the number coming through. They recognise the digits at the front where they've had other communication with the council.
I think that's a really important message. That, I mean, that sounds so obvious, but you wouldn't even think to check whether your number comes up or not. So that's invaluable advice. Great.
Okay, I think possibly we've talked a fair bit already about the channels, and we've talked there about partner organisations as well. So I think we can perhaps scoot on now to this most important section, which is around timelines. James?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a great campaign in that we've got a wonderful motivator and catalyst behind it of the free TV license ending. So we've got an ultimate deadline here of the 1st of June, where we dearly love everybody who's entitled to a pension credit to be receiving at that point. Obviously, if the claims take longer and it goes beyond that point, they're still going to benefit from it. But this would work really well as just a line in the sand, a target to try and aim at. So trying to maximise the number of people that have a pension credit by that date. We have to allow time for applications to be made and processed, etc. And we don't know exactly at what point the BBC are going to be delving into that data to see who's got it and who hasn't. They generate their letters. I am assuming they're going to be sending out letters to people quite a long way in advance of that deadline date to tell people. So there are a couple of unknowns there. But in terms of the sort of 3-phase plan campaign that we've put down there, plan, execute, review, we need to be into the execute stage of this phase pretty soon in order to hit that deadline. So if we have a look at what the timeline might be, we've sort of set out here week 1, week commencing 9th next week, to look at the plan, make sure you've got all the stakeholders engaged, partners engaged, etc. And then week 2, we're starting to get that signed off, plan the resources, make sure we've got enough people, make sure we've got the letters, text, scripts developed, etc., etc. So what that really, we haven't filled in all the blanks there, but there are some sort of key milestones in there, and also those things that trip us up that Janet's already mentioned, Easter and bank holidays to complicate things, and obviously you've got other things like annual billing, etc., going on at the moment. So that's a sort of a rough outline of what the plan could look like. I personally, it feels to me that there's enough time in there to get things done, and some of you, it sounds like, are already well advanced in this, and some perhaps are not yet, but it certainly feels like it should be achievable. There's still quite a long way to go. If people are still making their claims beyond the 1st of June, then that's not ideal, but it's still fine. They're still going to benefit from the pension credit, so nothing is lost by it taking a little bit longer, but if we can get it done the sooner, all the better. Does everybody, I suppose, go on, Janet.
Yeah, I was just going to say it would be interesting just to hear from everybody on the call who can speak, to what this looks like, what you think the key milestones are. And just for clarity, actually, weeks 1 to 3, they're in grey because that I've suggested is the planning time, and weeks 13 to X is the review time. So the big block of white in the middle is the execution. So yeah, as James says, very much a starter for 10 really. There are some immovables, but what do people think about this? We're looking for some feedback, I think.
I think from our point,
so
Jane here from Folkestone.
And then we'll go to John, if that's okay. Jane?
Yeah, we're probably on week 4 already, because we're about to start our customer engagement next week. On our list of 756, I think between next week and probably Easter, we will have managed to have contacted all our customers in one way or another. And then we're going to have a short period of a couple of weeks where we will allow them to make their applications, and then we will go back more towards the end of April and see how people are getting on. A lot of that will depend on what sort of conversations we have with them. When we create the spreadsheet that we work from, we do a lot of colour coding on it so that we can pick out those where they're easily going to make an application, those where they may need support, those where they're going to use their family, and those that are in CT and rent arrears, so that we can, either when we go back, we can have a look and we'll prioritise the arrear ones first to see how they're getting on, because we will feel they're most important to get hold of them. And then hopefully by the 1st of June, we will have quite a number on. So that's our plan at the moment.
Thank you, Jane. And John, do you want to share your experiences or your thoughts from Durham? Hi, John. Are you there?
Yes, sorry, I'm unmuted now. Yes. I was just going to say that you know, thanks to everybody, I've picked up some good ideas to help, like organise things, and I do like that. The plan there. Of course, it's all dependent on how many people you've got to get through and what resources you've got to get through those. Looking at the minute, we've got a good team of campaign workers, and the Lift dashboard has helped us organise, you know, and identify people. Just going back to what people were saying before, I don't think, you know, I hope it's not going to be the case that actually making the claims is going to be the difficult thing. It's identifying the people in the first place and getting over these barriers of people being suspicious about who you are when you ring them, things like that. But that plan generally seems ideal. Thanks for giving us that.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. Sanjay, if you want to, let me see if I can open the mic and just see what that looks like for you from, sorry, you are open, from Redbridge point of view.
Yeah, hi there. Thank you. This has been an absolute godsend. So thank you, everybody. It's really given me the way to start this off, and that's been our main real issue. So all of everyone's good work and hard work so far will really help us out. I think a key point, as mentioned previously, is what is the process of claiming. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm actually going to do the claim for my parents, first of all, and to see how that looks and feels from our side, because I think that's a really important factor. If it's an easy process or not, at least then we'll know what we're asking people to do. So I think I'll sort of do that as a sort of dummy run for myself anyway.
That sounds like a perfect real world test.
Yes.
Thanks.
Can I just get a tip?
Yes.
Sorry, it's John in Durham again. I was just going to say to people, if you don't use conference calls, then conference calling is a great thing. And in my previous offices, people haven't really used it. They didn't know how to use it. But you know, you can ring a customer, and you can ring the DWP at the same time and have a three-way conversation. And you can, you know, do a lot with conference calls. It's a really good way forward to deal with things in general, but particularly with things like that, you know.
It sounds like a great tip. Thanks, John.
Brilliant. Okay, there's a couple more questions. Clifford says, and sorry, apologising for having no voice. Islington is starting the process tomorrow, but the information gained today will really help streamline the process. Thanks, Clifford. Margaret from Haringey. Margaret has said, I think possibly, Jane, this might have been a question for you actually. It came in just after you finished chatting. Were there any GDPR issues with making unsolicited phone calls directly to individuals? Was that an issue for you, Jane? No.
No, it's never been an issue for us. I know it's a big topic and a lot of people seem to get weighed down by it. So we were a bit worried when we started, but we've had no complaints, no nasty comments, no anything really. Like I say, we do make sure we're talking to the right person. If they want to ask us anything so they can ensure we are the council, they can always call us back. We'll give them the main switchboard number. So there are ways around it, but as I've already said, it's mainly down to the officer that makes the calls for us. She's just developed such a fantastic way of doing it, and that is only because that's her main role. That's her job, to work from these lists, and she's just developed a fantastic way of engaging with customers that reassures them that they're talking to the right person. So, sorry, we haven't had any issues at all.
Excellent, great, lovely. Okay, James, do you want to quickly cover resources, then we can move on to the ROI stuff?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, you know, this is something that you're all going to be acutely aware of, really, about who actually does the work. So, generally, with a campaign like this, a project, essentially, you have to consider people, time, money. Somebody runs the project, then it might be the same person, but it might be delegated down to somebody who's actually creating that collateral that we've talked through. Whether you're going to be reusing stuff that we've done, that we've provided for you, whether you can share it amongst yourselves. I think the big thing here is that if you have outbound communication, that will generate inbound communication. So if they are different teams that are going to be picking that up, if there is a communication going out, then we need to make sure that we alert teams that are handling inbound traffic, because that call volume is likely to rise. So making sure that everybody is aware of what's happening and that they can resource accordingly. And then making sure we capture the right management information so that we can evaluate the success of the project at the end, and that sort of takes us on to onto the final slide, which is about evaluation. So what we need to do is fill out these blanks, essentially. So how many people were in the cohort? We can do that from the lift dashboard. Number of people in the campaign, so that is the people that we can actually contact, so the people that we've got contact details for. If you're only doing telephone, then it only must be only those that you've got telephone numbers for. But if you're cascading it down through multi-channel like Jane, then down to email, down to letter, and it might be the entire cohort. That might be the same as the number above. The number of people who've successfully engaged, so people who've answered the phone, people who've written back, people who've asked for support, so those people that you've actually managed to contact. And the final sort of golden number is the number of people that claim pension credit and therefore free TV license at the end of it. Now, from that, we can then calculate the value, and we've got values in Lift for the missing pension credit award, so we can calculate that. We know what the value of the TV license cost is, £157.50 from April, so we know what that is. The cost of the campaign is something that you would have to try and put a number to yourselves. So whether that's fixed costs, a resource of just the people, or whether it's additional costs for mail shots. Obviously, as Jane pointed out, emails cheaper, but there still has to be the time of somebody who does that merging and sending, etc., etc. So trying to put a number on what the cost of that campaign was, and then we can work out the gain to the household. So that's going to be the pension credit amount plus the TV license amount. How much gain to the council is perhaps more difficult because this is the trickle-down effect of raising financial resilience and affluence, and what that means to the council. There are some calculations on that we can help you with from other campaigns, and then the social gain to society, which is another big trickle-down number out there about financial inclusion and making sure that people are lifted out of poverty and play a more active and meaningful role in society. Potentially, it goes as broad and as far as that.
I think there's something. Sorry, James, just to jump in on there as well. I'm mindful of something that Jane mentioned last week about you had secured some money for a client, and they were able then to pay back council tax arrears or what have you. So that there are you're talking about the gains, the other gains that can be got that are not necessarily directly attribute to money coming in, but to the household. I think there's another point also as well, if I may, just around evaluation, and it's to do with the data sets, I suppose. But is there anything to be said about being mindful about when the data is updated in the dashboard, so that the results might show in the next refresh? I suppose that's a point really about when the data goes into the dashboard.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's pretty much fixed into a cycle of refresh dates. If your data is currently very old, then is it possible to wait for the next refresh to go in before we kick this off? Probably not, because of the time constraints we've got involved, but we would certainly need another refresh in order to be able to gain an idea of those people that are now claiming pension credit. So from the tracker within the dashboard, we can see the list of people that we've engaged with, and we can see how many of those people are now receiving pension credit. But of course, we need a refresh of data in order to be able to produce those numbers.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. I've just flicked on, James, as you were talking there, because this is the sort of ROI calculator that we've been developing. I'm not sure, James, you may have already talked about all this, but just in case there's any points you want to bring out on this slide as well.
Yeah, no, we've gone over this, and this is the prize at the end of the day, to prove the value of what we're doing, prove the value of the calculator, but really to prove the value of your engagement and your proactive work, and what it means to the council and to society and the people out there that desperately need this help. So it is a really important part of what we do, is to be able to, at the end of the day, point to the success. And as Sanjay said earlier, there are people from above looking down, always trying to understand what you're doing and how worthwhile it is. So we always have to be able to point to those numbers. So that shouldn't be far away from our consciousness.
Brilliant. Okay. Great. So I think this slide, I suppose, is the we've gone through our 10 points of our campaign, and I suppose this point is bringing it all back together, really, about where we started right at the very beginning, which was lift clients and the collaboration piece. So James, did you want to talk through this one?
Okay, so we've shown you a couple of our letter formats, etc. Now they've been developed for previous campaigns, and the way that they've been structured fits very well with the messaging that we want to deliver. The things that we have to be conscious of here is being age appropriate, because this is an elderly group of people that we're dealing with particularly. So what we have available to us is an email template, a letter template, or a call script template that we could produce, and it could be up to you guys to develop that yourselves and then share it amongst the group. That's what we'd really like to happen. We don't necessarily want 15, 20 wheels being invented across the country. It'd be great if we could you could help each other out with these sort of tasks. And the one that I think is really lends itself to collaboration is that objection handling one at the end. So as you go through this, each one of you will come up against the odd awkward one where somebody has a problem with what we're doing, or doesn't understand, or just doesn't trust, and that trust issue is a big deal, and how you tackle that to capture that so that we can feed that back to everybody later on, I think would be a very useful thing to do. So Janet, how do we think we should just invite people to share their email or notification letter scripts to us, and we can disseminate amongst the group?
I think so, definitely. Yeah, we can start that way, and I think, like we showed earlier in the slide deck, we've got some letters that we've had from before, from Harrogate, from Islington. So I think if you're happy to share the materials that you're working with for others, and indeed we can get some kind of virtuous circle going where we work out and we share stuff between each other. I think that would be, we can work out the mechanics of doing that, but I think it would be that the whole kind of collaboration piece and not reinventing the wheel is absolutely where we want to get to. We've suggested 2 points here on this slide, which is something I've called a group hug. Now there may be weeks where you actually really need a group hug, where things aren't necessarily going well, but I think really the point really of that is that to try and wherever possible have a weekly meeting, just to check in and just to share good ideas, and to actually vent if you need to and get ideas and suggestions, but basically to get lift users live clients like yourselves kind of talking to each other, and we want to facilitate that as much as possible. So what we're suggesting is that we can do a webinar like this, or indeed a GoToMeeting or some kind of online meeting every Tuesday at 10:30 for people to check in. Thank you, Clifford. I've just got your message. Clifford says he's virtually hugging all of us right now, so that's lovely. So I think if that works for everybody, please do say. Maybe if I open the mic and let you all say. Sanjay, I'm going to start with you. Does that kind of idea work for you, do you think?
Great idea, love it. Would be really good.
You're up for a group talk every Tuesday.
Definitely.
And does Tuesday at 10:30, 30 minutes sound okay?
Generally, it just depends on diaries and stuff. But yes, I think it's good to get something set in every week at least, and whoever can make it will make it. So can't guarantee everyone will be there, but yes, we'll certainly try.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jane, yourself, what do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because it's always nice to speak to people and find out that the problems you've got are also being experienced by others as well. You don't feel quite so lonely. It may not be possible for me to be in on all the meetings, but I've certainly got other people that could probably benefit from listening in and just sharing their ideas as well and their experiences. So yeah, great idea.
Excellent, great stuff. And John, how about yourselves up there in Durham? Does this sound like something that could be useful to you guys as well?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I'm all for that. That's great, thanks.
Brilliant. Well, that's great stuff. I think we'll get that set up. And yeah, like I say, if you can join, then that's brilliant. If not, you know that the meeting's there. We're also considering an online messaging community as well, something that isn't just every Tuesday at 10:30, but the platform that we use internally within Policy and Practice, because you may or may not know that we have the head office in Westminster, but many of us are spread all over the country. So internal communication is quite important for us, and a platform that we use that's worked well is something called Slack, and I don't know if that's something that is familiar to other people, but it's so handy to have different channels and different communications going on that you can just dip in and dip out of. Where files are stored, where people, you can post a message for somebody to get back to you. So I think if that is something that is useful as well, it costs us nothing to set that up other than time, and we've already done that. So I think if everybody's happy, I can send the invitation out to everybody, and we can basically carry on the conversation in an online community way as well. Yeah, see where we go from there, share files and that kind of stuff. So yeah, something more on that. And I think Sanjay in particular, I particularly am very interested to hear how you get on claiming for your mum and dad, and I think that's going to be very very valuable. So we'd love to hear back on that particular experience as well. Great. So I think there's quite a few actions for us there, and like I say, if you're not already, do download the 10-point action sheet in the panel on the right hand side. So just before we finish up, and just before I hand it back over to James to finish up, I just wanted to share with you, and Margaret unfortunately is muted, so I would have loved Margaret to say this, but when we did the webinar with Haringey last year, talking about the mixed age pension credit campaign, Linda, who works with Margaret, is the advice and assessment officer, and one of the things that she said that really just struck with us, but she said it was a really positive experience because the calls were very welcome. I learned a lot from just calling residents. Sometimes it's just a case of getting stuck in. And I think that's the thing, really. I think there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't pick up the phone. There's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't do things. And actually, sometimes big deep breath and just jump in. Sometimes just getting stuck in is the way to do it. But it was just a very refreshing and just very simple point that Linda made. So yeah. So on that note, James, over to you to finish up.
Yeah, okay. All I really want to say was thank you very much for coming today, and I hope you found it useful. I certainly did myself. There were some great takeaway points in there, things that I would never have thought about, like just making sure my council's number isn't barred when you phone up, so you can see what the number is. That it's just so obvious, but you wouldn't necessarily think of it. So I think there was a lot of useful information in there, and I hope that you all feel empowered, enabled, whatever phrase we want to use, to take this campaign forward and get some great results. As always, policy and practice are here to help, to support in any problems that you have. So phone me, email me, anything that you need, and we can support you in everything moving forward. And as we go forward, perhaps that support will come from yourselves through the online community, which will be perfect. But yeah, no, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. All right, thanks everyone. We'll send the slides around as well, because that might be useful as well, and I think the recording as well later on today. Brilliant. Okay, so on that note, thanks everybody, and chat to you all soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.